Thank you.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you tonight?
Superb. Some of you know, how many of you know Keary already? So for some of you, a lot of people know you, sir.
I think so.
And
I would say well, I'm coming home, so, I mean, there should be people here that know me.
I'm just surprised, since they know you, that they still came. You know.
Especially knowing some of the places I was 40 years ago.
So when you say you've come home, what do you mean? Did you grow up here?
I moved into the Mount Vernon community my senior year in high school.
Senior in high school, you moved here.
Moved here.
And Chuck and Murris, your mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom, Murris, has been in the hospital for the last few days with some complications from surgery that she had. She was really sick a couple nights ago. So tell us how she's doing.
She lost a lot of blood, but the doctors seem to have everything under control. All I know, and my wife and I have been out of touch. We've been going different places today, but I got a phone call from Judy, and she said Carla texted her and said, can you pick up Mom tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. if they release her? Jim's shaking his head yes, so they're talking about releasing her tomorrow. So,
Carla's your sister.
Carla's my sister.
Jim is Carla's husband. And don't you have a gig at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning?
11 o'clock on Sunday morning, so that's why I can't pick her up. So, yeah, so over at Rising Hope.
Tell us about Rising Hope.
Rising Hope was chartered 22 years ago to bring the power of Christ and the support of the church to the least, the lost, the lonely, and the left out in our community.
Where's it located?
We're right there at the corner of Russell Road and Route 1, across from the old Mount Vernon High School, the Saudi Academy, and soon to be probably some sort of government community building after the Saudi Academy leaves. So we're just a stone's throw from here, but we're there on the part of Route 1 that is very low income, very multicultural too. That's one of the beauties of it. I mean, you've got everybody there. You've got Latino, you got African, you got African American, you got Afro-Caribbean, you've got Asian, all of that right there in that community, and all those people are coming to Rising Hope, and it's an exciting
Why are they going to Rising Hope?
They come to Rising Hope for a number of reasons. One is we have a tremendous outreach into the community. We probably, over the course of the year, I bet we directly serve probably about 5,000 people, many multiple times. We have a food pantry that leverages $1,200,000 worth of food every single year. You all know about it. You provide some of that food, and much of that, we leverage the food. We don't buy any of it. People bring the food to us. The National Capital Food Bank brings the food to us. The Post Office Food Drive brings the food to us. And so we have a food pantry, a fresh produce giveaway, a soup kitchen. We feed meals after every service, and we have 5 services a week. We have a service on Sunday and a noon service Tuesday through Friday. We serve a meal after all of that. We have a clothing closet. We have emergency services. Many of you volunteer at the hypothermia shelter that we run in conjunction with New Hope Housing and Ventures in Community. There are a lot of reasons people are coming to Rising Hope. One of the things that we try to instill in people is that we're not just a social service agency.
How are you different?
And that we're a church. And what we do is we do all of this because we want to share the love of God in Christ with everyone. And this is how Christ would love. And this is what we feel compelled to do. And so we invite people to be a part of our worshiping congregation as well. We don't have a whole lot of people there on a Sunday morning, maybe 60 people at the most, and we have during the week anywhere from 20, 30, or 40 people at each of the services during the week. It's not a huge worshiping congregation. But probably all of those people, probably I should say not all, 90% of those people first came to Rising Hope because of the outreach, because they were receiving God's love through the material blessings. You know, we believe God cares about the whole person, and it's not just the spiritual side of our lives. Yeah, God's real concerned about where we are in our spirits in relationship to God, but also God cares about whether you've got enough food, whether you've got a place to sleep at night, whether you've got a job. He cares about the entire person, and so we're there to try to help people see God in action, that God does care about this, and then invite people to be a part of all of that caring, because the love of God as it comes to us, we're supposed to pass that on. One of the exciting things, one of the things we say, one of the miracles that's happening at Rising Hope is many of those people that we came to share the love of God in Christ with have found their healing and are finding their healing as they share God's love with others. And so you come into our food pantry, and we have a lot of people from the surrounding community, from Aldersgate, actually there's some key volunteers in our food pantry from Aldersgate, and many other churches, and we need that. That's a part of who we are, but working side by side are some of the very people that need the food to get through the week, and they're volunteering, and they are finding hope. They're finding a reason to exist. They're finding purpose and meaning in their life as they begin to share, just like us. When we, Aldersgate takes trips to Guatemala. I can remember when I went to Guatemala. I think God came to me probably more than God was coming through me there, because of the love that I was receiving back and being in mission, in ministry. And I know that that if we find God when we serve, why don't those people that need to be served, why wouldn't they find God as they serve as well? So we're inviting them to be a part of the ministry, and quite frankly, I think that's how God uses us all. I think every one of us, the pains that we go through in life, God can use that for God's purposes and for God's healing. God doesn't waste a hurt. God doesn't waste a single hurt. This morning at district conference, there was a video that was shown of Rising Hope, and you all will get to see it because it's going to be shown at every charge conference. So October 15th at 4 o'clock, come out and see the debut of the Rising Hope video, right? In that video, there's a young man named Jeff Lasonic. Jeff spent 20 years in prison for vehicular manslaughter. He was a foolish young man driving on drugs, and he killed 2 people. And I'm not sharing anything he doesn't share in public. But he found Christ in prison, and when he got out, he had no place to go to live, so he went down to the Eleanor Kennedy shelter and found out about Rising Hope, came to Rising Hope, started worshiping with us, started getting involved in the community, and then started finding ways to volunteer. First, he was a driver for us, and then he started helping out with little things here and there. But then he took over our Celebrate Recovery program, using his experiences of all the negative things that happened to him because of his drug use then he uses that to try to bring healing and hope to other people. The exciting thing about Jeff is his story has come full circle. After 8 years, after being released from prison, his involvement, his maturity, his spiritual level, his discipleship grew. People started seeing this in him. Eleanor Kennedy Shelter hired him back to be one of the resident staff members there. So he's working now at the same shelter that housed him. And just this year, he was named Lord Fairfax by the Board of Supervisors, Citizen of the Year, not just for an individual district. Each district does that, but the entire Board of Supervisors voted on him to be the Citizen of the Year. And it's quite a testimony to the work that he's put into making his life better. And is one of the reasons Rising Hope is there. We're there to try to help give that grounding to people that may have been so beaten down they don't feel comfortable coming into a church like Aldersgate because their self-esteem is at such a place that they're feeling like, how can, would I even be accepted? Of course he'd be accepted. He'd be accepted here, but they're struggling with that. And so Rising Hope is a place where they can come and be with other folks that have gone through a lot of the same struggles, that know the difficulties in life that they've had, whether it be because of drug issues, whether it be because of mental health issues, whether it be because of lack of education and not being able to get a good job, or because of a physical disability. Rising Hope is a place where there's an incredible sense of love there, an incredible sense of love that people are coming in there because they know they're accepted. And I just want to take this moment to thank all of you for your support, because Aldersgate's one of the big supporters of Rising Hope, and I'm very appreciative of that.
So was it your experience of love here that has put that at the core of what Rising Hope is doing in the community?
There's a big connection. I came here when Jim Dooley was the pastor, and shortly after that, Ray Wiggins became the youth minister, and so I was tutelaged under them, and I think the sense of community that I had here, especially in my senior year in high school with the youth group, that was important to me. And then when I was accepted, I was the youth minister here back in 75, 76, 77, somewhere in that area. So I got to know a number of old timers now here at that point. And so, yeah, there has been a great connection.
We talk about this service being conversations at the heart of the matter. So I'm wondering about your heart. So people get loved at church, become a youth minister, and then they go on to glorious things, right? Rising Hope is not the aspiration lots of pastors have. So I'm wondering, why are you there?
It's a good question. I don't think I could be anywhere else. And I know that I went through a lot of difficulties in my life. Many of you here know my 5 years, I don't know how many years, but I really delved into drugs quite a bit back in the late 60s, early 70s. And my life really went downhill. I flunked out of college. I just was wondering what in the world, was going to happen to me. But somewhere in that process, I was confronted with an image of Christ, an image of Christ as being the place where all the answers were found. And, you remember it was turbulent times. We were in the middle of the Vietnam War, all the civil rights protests that were happening then, and drugs were really rampant at that time. My life was falling apart, and I know that I knew that this was going nowhere, but I didn't know where to go. So I turned back to all the teachings that I got from Sunday school. Don't discount the importance of Sunday school teachers. We may forget about it as we get a little older and run away from it and run away from church even. I did that. But there comes a time in your life when you fall back on that and you remember that. And that's what made the difference. I can remember the day I turned my life over to Christ. I was at a rock concert, and it was an outdoor rock concert, and it was in the middle of the Jesus Freak movement, and I was just, where am I going? My life is a mess. And I started remembering the teachings of my Sunday school teachers. And I've always been an activist. I've always been involved in trying to help make our society a better society. So I was involved in all the protests back in those days as well. And something came to me when I started remembering the teachings and started realizing that the way to change the world is changing people's hearts and changing their relationship with God. And that was it. And when I realized that Christ was the answer, I can remember it like it was yesterday, and it was a very mystical experience.
What happened?
I was saying to myself, maybe Christ is the answer, maybe Christ is the answer. And when I said, yes, I believe that Christ is the answer, it was like a cloud of doubt, all the depression, all of the uncertainty that I had during that time, it lifted. And I swear I could see a mist. I could see a mist lifting off of me. And then I got infused with a very warm sensation, a tingling sensation. And I knew that was the Holy Spirit. And my life that's the moment my life changed. And I started on the path that I'm on now. And I know that it's our relationship with the Christ that makes a difference. Not so much what we believe about Christ, but do we have a relationship with Christ? And that's really what I'm trying to do at Rising Hope, because Christ gave me meaning, gave me a new life, and I know that can do that for others. It did it for Christ did that for Jeff Lasonic. Christ is doing it for people all throughout our congregation. Does it always come at once? Is it as dramatic as mine? Is it a complete sanctification? Well, I don't think any of us are ever completely sanctified, but Christ is at work, and as much as we will allow that love to come into our lives and guide and direct our lives, Christ will be at work. And it's it's really, are we living in that love? Are we sharing that love with one another that makes the difference?
It's an amazing journey. An amazing journey. I understand you started Rising Hope out of the trunk of your car, wanting to give back to a few people the good that you had received, and trying to be the center of people finding food and shelter and spiritual nourishment requires an awful lot of trust. You can't just do it one time. It's this constant. So I was thinking this morning you talked about National Geographic doing a study, wanting to do a photographic study of food banks throughout the DC area and how the country arranges to take care of people. And Rising Hope is part of what the National Geographic is doing in the book they just published. Could you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, a little more than a year ago, I got Rising Hope got a phone call from the Capital Area Food Bank saying that National Geographic wanted to do this book. And of all of the food banks that the Capital Area Food Bank serves, I mean, they serve all of the food banks in the entire Washington metropolitan area. They said, we want to single out Rising Hope. And they've got, I mean, this book that was done was from all over the country, but in our area, they came to the National Capital Area Food Bank, and the Capital Area Food Bank called us and said, you know, you run such an exemplary food bank, you must have some stories about some people that are also an inspiration. And so we said, of course. And we got hold of a young mother, Samantha Jacobs, 3 children, working mother. She works as a health aide in an elementary school, 10-month job, so she doesn't have income all year long. And she's going to college to get a degree. And she needs the help that our food bank gives them and gives her. And she couldn't make it. She couldn't make it without that support. And so we said, well, Samantha's story is one to tell. And Samantha's story with Rising Hope is on pages 72 through 75 of this new National Geographic book called Feeding America, Stories of Hunger and Hope. And Samantha got a phone call just 2 days ago, and she said, Pastor Keary, you're not going to believe this. I just got a phone call again. They're going to interview me again on Tuesday, and they're inviting me up to a big gala type event in New York City on October 18th for me to tell the story again of how Rising Hope has been a part of my life and the food, and how it's helped me begin to get my feet on the ground. And so we're quite excited about all of that.
It's a remarkable thing, Keary. I know Aldersgate thinks of you as one of their sons, and they perceive when they're at Rising Hope that's an extension of Aldersgate's ministry. It's like Aldersgate on Route 1,
Right.
and they're thrilled to be part, to count you as a friend and a mentor in this work. You have volunteers from all over the place here and from churches in the whole Washington area who join in what you're doing. And we're honored to have you here tonight and to hear more of your story. Would you tell us are you going to New York when she gets the gala?
I don't know yet. I've got to talk with her. She's got to have some conversations with them. It's a difficult week that she's going to New York, so I kind of doubt that. But, you know, we'll find out.
We want to hear how everything turns out.
We'll let you know.
Keary, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Did you thank Keary Kincannon?